All right, hey, so welcome. I did not write down what week this is. So here we are in this week. Today is March 2nd. All right, so I was truly astounded. First of all, in a good way. Those of you who did the work on the assignments I graded last night, you did a great job. And even if you gave feedback that was not positive about the Tucker Carlson interview, I still loved the feedback because it was yours. When I came to the submissions that said, this is written as a college sophomore who is athletic, then I know somebody else wrote that submission. You went to an AI source to get your submission done. There was another one that was AI authored that said, I don't have access to that interview. So you will need to put in your thoughts here. And then there was another one that said, you will need to change this to your voice so it sounds like you. So that gives me pause. What are you doing? Why are you taking this class? College is expensive. College is a privilege. Not everybody has this opportunity. You have this opportunity. And if you spend it going to a chat bot for all of your answers, you waste and squander this opportunity. If you will do the work, you give yourself a chance to build yourself, to become something great, someone that you and others admire. But if you take the lazy way out, I promise you will not wind up somewhere you want to be. You will not. You won't. You won't be admired. You won't like yourself. You have to do the hard work. You have to do the work you don't want to do because that builds you. It gives you self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth. It builds you. It's a building block on which you can stand. You must do the work. When you choose to not do the work, you truly only cheat yourself. And that's just so disappointing to see. It really is. So I hope that you will do the work, and most of you are. But those of you who are not, please start doing the work. Okay, so this week is an important week. We're looking at the media. So always with this class, I encourage you to get off of social media and to look at real media. Like Fox, Newsmax, CNN, MSNBC. There's so many different news sources and they're available all over the place. I encourage you to look at media and to see both sides of a news story because you can't just go to one place. For example, I always like to go to the Drudge Report and I like to go to the Fox News website, find different sources of news. So this week we're looking at the media. You're going to read chapter 8 and then you're going to learn about a man named Daniel Ellsberg. And I want you to do the work to learn this because it's very important and it's telling you something about how your government operates. So Daniel Ellsberg was an analyst and he had served in the military and he worked for a think tank named RAND during the Vietnam War. And he is one of the analysts who studied the United States involvement in the Vietnam conflict. Put a pause here because while we're talking about that, you need to be paying attention to how President Trump takes action. Vietnam was a 9-year conflict. It started in 1964 with Congress's Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which allowed President Johnson to use military force in Vietnam, and it went on until 1975. 9 years. We never formally declared war there. What we were doing is we were perpetuating President Truman's policy of containment of communism. So after World War II, President Truman, in 1948, he initiated this policy of containment. This is why you need to pay attention. This is why you need to get your information, do the work to get it, and you need to do the work to form opinions. Because I'm sure you could ask ChatGPT or wherever you go, who should I vote for? And I'm sure that it would have an opinion. You've got to do the work to know yourself who you would vote for. And here's why. So in 1948, President Truman initiates this policy of containment of communism. That drags us into the Korean War. Why were we there? Communist North Korea invaded democratic South Korea. Truman's policy of containment of communism was we are going to fight communism all over the world. And as somebody who has a democratic government gets invaded by a communist government, we're going to go help them. We're going to spend American lives, American money, American weapons. These are your taxes. These are your family members. We're going to spend all this to go help these strangers fight communism. Because the idea was we want to contain it where it is. We don't want it to spread. So Truman's policy of containment of communism drags us into Korea. In 1964, Truman's policy of containment of communism. It is 16 years old at that point. Truman has not been the president since 1953 when Eisenhower took over. But here we are in 1964. We're going to war because communist North Vietnam has invaded South Vietnam. So we're going to bolster South Vietnam. It was a total disaster. We were not victorious. We spent so many American lives and well-being. Surely somewhere in your family, there's a Vietnam veteran because young men were drafted into the conflict. That's what we have in our country. The Pentagon did a study a couple of years ago, within the last 5 years, about high school seniors. Oh, maybe it wasn't the Pentagon. It wasn't the Pentagon, but it was some sort of agency did a study of high school seniors. And what they found is more than 80% of our high school seniors are too fat, too dumb, too lazy, and too drug addicted for military service. So what does that mean for our country? That means that we become vulnerable. That's what it means for our country. That's national security. So every time you want ChatGPT to do your work for you because you're too lazy, distracted, or whatever else you're doing, you're giving up some of your own security. Okay, so we go into Vietnam. 9 years. My uncle has a Bronze Star from serving in Vietnam. Every family in this country was touched in some way by the Vietnam conflict. So we get out of Vietnam, finally, 1975. There are so many issues from it. Cancers from Agent Orange, so many mental health issues. They had children in the tunnels, and so these service people would have to go into the tunnels, and these children are carrying bombs and other things. And so it was just such a mentally, physically taxing experience. It was horrible. So then we get into later wars. The war in Afghanistan started in the year 2003, 2003, about 2001. Early 2000s, you could serve a 20-year active duty military stint in Afghanistan. That's how long we were there. So one thing about Trump is this thing in Iran, he's quick. But are you paying attention? Do you like what he's doing? Do you know what he's doing? You must pay attention. And that's what we learned from Daniel Ellsberg. We learned Daniel Ellsberg, because of his own military service, because of his work in this think tank, he understood how the government is supposed to work. And so what he did, there was a 7,000-page study that that Daniel Ellsberg helped produce about the United States involvement in Vietnam. Daniel Ellsberg was one of the only people who read the whole thing. And so he started leaking it to the press, to the New York Times, and over time, 17 other newspapers. He was leaking it because what did he know? He knew that in the 1970s, people were reading the newspaper. They were paying attention. He also knew people were furious. We are way over this Vietnam conflict. It is not benefiting us, and it is costing us too much. he knew that our system of government relies on an informed electorate. That's you. That's your brain processing information, going into that voting booth, making decisions. That's you. That's your responsibility. It's your privilege. It's your duty living in this country. You must be informed. So he knew that if he leaked this information, the public would start talking to their elected officials. And when we are upset with an elected official, what do? We vote them out. We vote somebody else in. So if people want to stay in power, there are no federal term limits for your Congress people. They can just set up shop in there for decades. So if they want to stay in power, what do they need to do? They need to do what their constituents are telling them to do. Daniel Ellsberg really committed treason by leaking that information, but he really helped bring about the end to the Vietnam conflict, because once people knew what was happening, they wanted it to stop, and they started to vote accordingly. There's a huge feature of our system of government, an informed electorate who votes. That's how it's designed. That's your role to play in it. Maybe even someday to be a congressperson, the president, we don't know. Don't limit yourself. Do the work. So you're looking at that this week, the role of the media in ending the Vietnam conflict. It led to a Supreme Court case because Nixon, super paranoid, super ticked off, he wanted it stopped. But the Supreme Court, in a 3-paragraph opinion, said no. That is one of the key features of our system of government, that the public know what its government is doing. So, also you're going to look at the fairness doctrine this week. So what is the fairness doctrine? In the late 1940s, TV finally surpasses radio. It's less than 100 years ago. Technology has moved at just lightning speed. So TV surpasses radio. So there's this fairness doctrine. I think it was 1949. Instituted by the Federal Communications Commission. That is a facet of the executive branch of our government. So you're going to answer some questions about the fairness doctrine. In the 1980s, 1987, the fairness doctrine went away under the Reagan administration. The fairness doctrine, just for a super simplified version, said if you have a prominent news story, you must give airtime to both sides and you can't ignore it. The news manipulates a lot. They ignore important things if it doesn't fit their narrative. They tell only one side. So with the fairness doctrine, both sides of an issue must be addressed. So then in 1987, now we can have one-sided conversations. That's what we have still today. There's no fairness doctrine today. And really it comports more with the First Amendment, freedom of the press. They should get to pick and choose. That's one of our features of governance. That's why I encourage you to have more than one news source that you consult. So, in 1987, who do we see bursting onto the scene? Rush Limbaugh. He was the pioneer for talk radio, and this one-sided talk radio that is finally allowed after the fairness doctrine is no more. So, all right. Also, I am going to link Andy Frisella. I looked it up. He's worth between $100 and $150 million. He is very foul-mouthed. So you just do this if you want to. But if you go to his website, and I'll link it for you, especially those of you who want to do the cheating, please check this out. But I do think it might be beneficial for everyone. You can subscribe to his Andy Grams. It's completely free. It's no cost whatsoever. What that is a short little email that comes to you every day, 365 days of the year. And so over the weekend on Saturday, he had me about reading. And I looked up some statistics. Very few people read books. Those who do, Andy Frisella, a 100 millionaire, says reading is leverage. It will set you apart. It will change your life. It will remove roadblocks. It will save you time. He said for over 25 years, he's read 10 pages a day. I'm wondering, could we do that? Could we set our phones down? Could we stop playing a game? Could we pay attention to 10 pages a day? And if we did that consistently, what would that do to our lives? I challenge you to take that challenge and start reading 10 pages a day from a book. Libraries have free books that you can borrow and then return. You don't have to have money to be a reader. If you struggle with reading, there are so many programs, adult education programs, that can help you with this. Let's address this so that you do your own work so you can participate in your country and make it a country you're proud of and that you enjoy living in. All right, that's my soapbox. That's my thing for this week. Okay, reach out with questions and have a great week. Oh, yes, no. Oh, yeah, your census is already done. I'm looking at the wrong card. All right, have a great week.